Rhea scrolled through the notifications on her phone, her eyes landing on the icon of the dating app she'd impulsively signed up for weeks ago. It wasn't your typical app, though. This one was designed for an experiment. An anonymous voice chat setup connected strangers for late-night calls. There were no photos, no profiles, just midnight conversations with a stranger. Rhea didn't know why she joined. Maybe it was the frustration of endless swiping, ghosting, and shallow texts. But this felt different. She wasn't expecting much, just curiosity and a bit of fun. Tonight, though, was her first call. As the clock struck 11:59 p.m., she found herself unusually excited. She nestled into her bed, the city skyline faintly glowing outside her window. At exactly midnight, her phone buzzed and she answered.
Hello?
She asked, her voice a mix of anticipation and caution. A brief silence lingered before a smooth, deep voice responded.
Hey, I'm Jake.
Rhea.
She replied, settling into the moment, unsure if this voice belonged to someone serious or playful.
Midnight magic, huh?
Jake's voice carried a hint of amusement, like he was holding back a secret.
Yeah, I guess so. Midnight's a weird time to meet someone, right?
Not for me. It's my favorite time. No filters, just real talk.
His voice was easy, confident. Rhea could tell he was the type who could talk his way through anything. Normally, she'd be guarded, but there was something comforting about the anonymity of the whole thing. No pressure, no expectations.
So, how does this work?
Rhea asked, trying to navigate the strange setup. Jake paused, then spoke softly.
We skip all the boring stuff. No small talk. Just what's on your mind right now. And don't hold back.
Rhea smiled to herself.
Okay, right now? I'm thinking about how this is both exciting and totally crazy. Talking to a stranger at midnight like this.
I like crazy.
Jake replied, his voice smooth.
And what else? What are you really thinking about?
Rhea bit her lip, intrigued by his forwardness.
I'm thinking about what you look like. What you're like.
Same here. But we're keeping it a mystery, aren't we?
Yeah.
Rhea laughed.
But I'm picturing you with dark hair, maybe some tattoos. The whole bad boy thing.
Jake chuckled, low and amused.
Close. And you, Rhea? I'm picturing someone who's too smart for their own good. A little bit of a mystery herself.
Rhea leaned back on her pillows, relaxing into the conversation.
You're good at this.
I know.
Jake teased.
But now we've got the boring stuff out of the way. Let's get into something real.
Their midnight calls quickly became addictive. Every night they'd talk for hours, sometimes laughing, other times sharing intimate thoughts they rarely voiced to anyone else. But there was always a line they danced around, a tension that simmered beneath the surface.
Tell me something you've never told anyone.
Jake said one night, his voice softer than usual. Rhea hesitated, biting her lip. She wasn't sure how far to take this.
I once ghosted a guy.
She admitted, a hint of guilt in her tone.
Oh?
Jake asked, curiosity piqued.
Was he that bad?
No, he wasn't.
Rhea said, sighing.
I just wasn't ready. I panicked. I didn't know how to handle the intensity. So I disappeared.
Jake was quiet for a moment.
Maybe he deserved an explanation.
Maybe.
Rhea whispered.
But I can't take it back now.
There was a tension in his silence that she couldn't place. He changed the subject quickly after that, but the weight of her confession hung in the air, unspoken but not forgotten. As their conversations continued, the playful banter turned into something deeper. They'd flirt, challenge each other's thoughts, and sometimes the topics got more heated, both emotionally and sexually. One night, Rhea brought it up.
Do you ever think about what we'd be like in person?
All the time.
Jake said, his voice a little rougher than usual.
Especially at night, like this.
Rhea felt a thrill run down her spine. She liked the direction they were heading.
What would you do if we were together right now?
She asked, her voice low, testing the waters. Jake's voice dropped, full of unspoken heat.
I'd start slow. Maybe brush my hand over your leg. Get closer. I'd let the tension build.
Rhea closed her eyes, imagining it.
And then?
Then,
Jake said, his voice a sensual whisper.
I'd kiss you, but not all at once. I'd tease you, make you want it, make you beg for it.
Her pulse quickened.
I wouldn't beg.
Not yet,
Jake teased.
but trust me, you would.
They both fell into silence after that, the air between them thick with lust and unspoken desire. Neither of them said it out loud, but both were thinking it. They wanted to meet. As the weeks passed, their connection grew stronger, but so did Rhea's nerves. She couldn't deny the way her feelings had deepened for Jake. This was more than just some fun experiment now. They'd shared secrets, desires, and even some of their most vulnerable thoughts. But that earlier confession about ghosting someone lingered in her mind. What if meeting Jake in person didn't live up to the intensity of their calls? One night, as they were talking, Jake's voice turned serious.
Rhea, I've been thinking, I want to meet you.
Rhea's heart pounded. She'd been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure if she was ready.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Jake said a little softer this time.
I feel like we've been building something, and I don't want to hide behind this phone anymore. I want to see you.
Rhea hesitated. There was something in the way he said it that felt heavier than just curiosity.
Okay,
She said quietly.
let's meet.
They decided on a time and place, an outdoor cafe by the river, midnight. It felt right. The night of the meetup, Rhea stood at the cafe, her nerves a tangled mess. Her heart raced as she checked the time, 11:59 p.m. She hadn't felt this nervous in ages. There was something about Jake that made her feel alive, but there was also a sense of dread she couldn't shake. What if this was all too good to be true? At midnight, she saw him, tall, dark hair, with a presence that commanded attention. He walked toward her, and her breath hitched. He was exactly how she had imagined, and yet more. But as he got closer, his expression shifted.
Emily Moon.
Jake said, his voice laced with recognition, though his smile didn't reach his eyes.
It's you.
Emily blinked, confused.
Wait, you know me?
Jake's smile turned bitter.
Yeah, I do.
And then it hit her. His voice, his face. The guy she had ghosted a year ago. Jake, or rather, Jaden Hunter. Her pulse quickened, but not in the way she had hoped. Memories came flooding back. Their conversations, their chemistry, and how she had panicked and vanished without a word.
Oh my God, Jaden Hunter.
She whispered, her hand flying to her mouth.
I didn't realize.
Jaden cut her off, his voice sharp but quiet.
I did. Took me a few calls to put it together. But the moment you mentioned ghosting a guy, well, I kind of figured it out. And your voice is one of a kind. Impossible to forget.
Emily's face flushed with embarrassment and guilt.
I'm so sorry, Jaden. I didn't know what to say, and I'm sorry.
Jaden looked at her for a long moment, his jaw clenched.
You broke me back then, you know? I thought we had something real. And then you just disappeared.
Emily's chest tightened, her eyes pleading.
I was scared. It wasn't about you. I just wasn't ready.
Jaden exhaled, shaking his head.
And now?
Emily stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat as Jaden's sharp words echoed in her mind. The weight of their shared past, now fully laid bare between them, left her trembling. She had been unprepared for this. She had no idea that the man she had poured her heart out to over the phone, who had listened to her most intimate thoughts, was the very same man she had ghosted a year ago.
I'm sorry, Jaden.
She whispered, stepping closer, her eyes wide with remorse.
I didn't know how to handle it then. I wasn't ready. But I'm ready now.
Jaden looked at her, his jaw still tight, his chest rising and falling with deep, controlled breaths. There was a fire in his eyes, anger, hurt, but also something else, something deeper.
Ready for what, Emily?
He asked, his voice low and dangerous.
For what, exactly?
Emily felt her heart racing, her palms damp.
Ready to face this. To face you. To make things right. I made a mistake, and I'm here now because I want to.
Before she could finish her sentence, Jaden closed the distance between them, his hand gripping her waist and pulling her flush against him. His other hand slid to the back of her neck, tilting her face upward. His eyes burned into hers, and without another word, his lips crashed onto hers with a hunger that left her dizzy. The kiss was nothing like what Emily had expected. It was raw, fierce, and electric. All the tension from their midnight phone calls, all the teasing, the flirting, the late-night confessions boiled over in that single moment. It was as if all the pent-up desire had finally found its release, and neither of them was willing to hold back. Emily's fingers found their way into his hair as she kissed him back with equal intensity, matching his fervor. Her body pressed tightly against his, the world around them disappearing into a blur. There was no one else, no past, no future, just this burning moment between them. Jaden's hands tightened around her waist, lifting her effortlessly off the ground. Emily gasped into his mouth as he carried her toward his car, parked just a few feet away. Her mind spun, but all she could think about was the heat of his lips on hers, the way his hands gripped her as if he'd never let go. He placed her down gently next to the car, his breath ragged as he broke the kiss, but only for a moment. His eyes bore into hers, dark and intense.
Get in.
He rasped. Without thinking, Emily nodded, her heart hammering wildly in her chest. She slipped into the passenger seat, and Jaden was beside her in an instant. The car door slammed shut, sealing them inside a bubble of lust, tension, and unresolved feelings. Before she could catch her breath, Jaden reached for her again, his hand slipping under her chin, pulling her toward him. This kiss was even more intense, more desperate, their bodies tangling in the confined space. His hands roamed over her, his touch igniting sparks along her skin. Her body responded to every movement, her pulse quickening as his lips trailed down her neck, sending shivers through her.
Jaden.
She breathed, her voice barely a whisper as she clung to him, her fingers tracing the hard lines of his chest. He paused, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling.
I haven't forgotten what you did.
He said, his voice rough but softened by the desire in his eyes.
But I can't stop wanting you.
Emily cupped his face in her hands, her heart pounding in her chest.
I don't want to run anymore. I'm here, Jaden. I want this. I want you.
Jaden groaned softly, his hands sliding under her shirt, the heat of his touch leaving her breathless.
You don't know what you're doing to me, Emily.
He murmured against her lips before kissing her again, deeper this time. The car windows fogged up as their bodies moved together, the air between them thick with the intensity of their emotions. Every touch, every kiss felt like a release of all the frustration, the longing, the need they had both kept hidden for so long. In that fiery embrace, Emily realized she had crossed a threshold, one from which returning would be impossible. And she definitely didn't want to. This wasn't just a midnight rendezvous anymore. This was real, raw, and overwhelming. As they held each other in the heat of that moment, she realized just how deeply she had fallen for him. Again. Jaden pulled back slightly, his breathing heavy, his eyes searching hers.
This doesn't mean I've forgiven you.
He said, his voice low but filled with an unmistakable warmth.
But maybe we can start over.
Emily smiled, her lips swollen from their kisses.
I'd like that.
She whispered. Jaden pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers as he caught his breath.
I have to ask, is Emily Moons even your real name? I mean, considering we first met on a dating app.
Emily let out a soft laugh, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear.
It is. I didn't know at the time that people usually use fake names on those apps.
She tilted her head and raised an eyebrow playfully.
Wait a minute. So is Jaden Hunter your real name?
Jaden chuckled.
Nope, that was my fake name. My real name is Derek Shepard.
Emily's eyes widened, and then she burst into laughter.
Like McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy? Now that sounds like a fake name.
Jaden grinned, shrugging.
Guess I've been hiding in plain sight.
Without another word, Jaden leaned in again, capturing her lips in another fiery kiss. And as the night stretched on, Their midnight rendezvous turned into something much more than just playful banter. It was the start of something new, something neither of them could have ever anticipated. They had always been searching for something that could fill the void in their hearts. And now, as their souls intertwined under the cover of darkness, they realized all they truly needed was
All You Need Is, a podcast where the heart finds its voice through enchanting romance stories. Join me as we explore the timeless power of love, weaving together tales that spark joy, nostalgia, unspoken desires, a warmth that makes your heart flutter, and the sweet magic of love that transcends time. From the first blush of infatuation to the comfort of lasting connections. Prepare to be swept off your feet as we delve into the intricacies of relationships. Celebrate love in all its forms, and remind you that, at the end of the day, all you need is.
Tune in and let your heart be your guide.
All You Need Is, a Spotify exclusive podcast conceptualized and created by Nazar Partiwala using 11 Labs.